Good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to welcome you all to the beautiful riding of Mississauga Malton, and I'm honored to be a candidate for this riding of Mississauga Malton. Stephen understands the pain that so many in Ontario are feeling right now. He's presenting bold ideas and solutions to these urgent problems. He's offering voters a choice in this election: a conservative government that will cut with chaos, only making the biggest and the richest get richer, or a liberal government that will invest to make Ontario a place to grow again. Please help me in welcoming the next Premier of Ontario, Stephen Del Duca.
Well, good morning. I'm very happy to be here in Mississauga Malton this morning, standing alongside Aman Gill, who I know is working so hard to be the next Ontario Liberal MPP for this community. And before I get into this morning's announcement, I just wanted to acknowledge, of course, we've all now heard the news that both Mr. Schreiner and Ms. Horwath have tested positive for COVID-19. I just wanted to say publicly that I know that this is most unfortunate news, and in particular for both of them, of course, and their families. I want them to know, and I want Ontario to know, that I hope that they are feeling okay, that they're feeling well, and that they recover very quickly. And this morning, I did reach out to both Ms. Horwath and Mr. Schreiner. I called them both, left them both voicemails, letting them know that I hope they're doing okay, and that I hope that they recover so quickly. I think this is a good reminder that though we all want to be on the other side of this pandemic, that there are still risks, and that so many, as Aman said, so many here in Mississauga and across Ontario are still struggling. And we can't simply just pretend that everything is fine, that everyone's okay. Ontarians are strong and resilient, there's no doubt about that. But we still have to be aware of the fact that we're not all the way through this just yet. I also do want to say, again, before I get into the specifics of this morning's announcement, I do want to say that, of course, since learning that I was a close contact of a confirmed positive case of COVID, I tested myself this morning. My test came back negative. I will continue to monitor myself closely for any symptoms and to test regularly, daily, in fact, going forward, because I am now a confirmed case of a close contact, or a close contact of a confirmed case. So today, as Aman just referenced a second ago, and I just mentioned a second ago as well, we know people across this province are in the midst of the worst affordability crisis that Ontarians have faced for many years. We also know that the cost of pretty much everything in your day-to-day lives has skyrocketed, and is still skyrocketing out of control under the Ford Conservatives. Now, like many who are watching this election closely, I can still distinctly recall when Doug Ford stood at a podium in May 2018, when he was first running to be Premier of Ontario. And in that moment, he looked straight into the eyes of Ontarians, and he said that if elected, he'd bring down the price of gas by 10 cents. In fact, he warned about the fact that if he wasn't elected, the cost of gas at the pumps would climb to $2 a liter. I have to tell you, the comments that Doug Ford made relating to how he is for the people remain the biggest fraud perpetrated during the last election campaign. Think about this. Literally the cost of everything. The cost of gas. We see where it is. It has literally doubled in this province of ours over the past 18 months. You all know that if you're renting in this province, your rent has gone up because Doug Ford scrapped rent control. You know that if you're a minimum wage earner, the fact that Doug Ford and his team canceled your scheduled minimum wage increases literally took $6,000 or more out of your pocket. You know that the cost of food, I know this, I go grocery shopping every single Saturday. We know that the cost of food is going up, and Doug Ford has no plan to deal with it. And coming back to the cost of gas, let's just remember that putting out a press release and making an announcement right at the end of his mandate, right before an election was going to start, that would potentially help on the gas front is not a solution. When you make a promise 4 years ago, there is an expectation that you actually deliver on it the way that you said you would. And Doug Ford, again, chose deliberately not to do that. So some of you will know that just a few days ago, I was so proud with all of the candidates who are there to sign, all of our candidates, to sign the Ontario Liberal Party's affordability pledge. 19 points that are contained specifically in our affordability pledge that will go right to the heart of helping you confront the affordability crisis in your day-to-day lives. Point number 18, commitment number 18 in our list of 19 affordability pledges is in fact that come July 1st, an Ontario Liberal government would reduce the gas tax by 5.7 cents per litre and the fuel tax by 5.3 cents per litre. We will do that come July 1st should we win on June 2nd. We're not going to leave you hanging for 4 years. We're not going to wait and wait and wait and then put out a press release right before the next election campaign. We're going to be there on your side from day one. And I also want to comment that it was deeply discouraging to see Ontario's NDP put out one of their earliest versions of their platform, where they confirmed that if elected, they would introduce $600 million more in gas taxes, effectively requiring that they reintroduce or introduce legislation that would bump the cost of gas up starting right away. That makes no sense. Again, I've said from day one in this campaign, there is a clear, stark choice in front of families here in Mississauga and families across Ontario. The Ford Conservatives who want to hold us back and hold us down, or the Ontario Liberal plan, that is fair and forward-looking and fully costed, that will go right at the heart of the affordability crisis, that will make your life easier and more affordable, bring down the cost of public transit with Buck a Ride province-wide, bring down the cost of prepared meals, bring down the cost of gas at the pumps, bring back rent control, support our workers and their families and small business owners. We will do all of this, and we will start that important work for you, immediately upon taking office. Thank you, and with that, I'd be happy to take any questions that you might have.
Thank you, everyone. We'll be taking questions from folks in person and then move to people on the line.
Hi, Mr. Del Duca.
Morning.
I wanted to ask, in light of these COVID diagnoses, are you going to take any extra pandemic precautions while campaigning or change the way that you campaign at all?
Well, look, we're going to be extremely vigilant, as we have done all the way through this campaign and before. You will know many of the announcements that we make, many of the appearances that I participate in are outdoors. We are masking. I have all of my vaccinations. All of our candidates are appropriately vaccinated as well. And as I mentioned a second ago, because I'm a close contact of 2 confirmed cases now, I will continue to monitor myself for symptoms, and I will continue to test.
And later today, we're expecting the Supreme Court decision on the Premier's mandate letters. Will you commit to releasing your mandate letters if you're Premier?
Yes, I will proudly release on as soon as they're provided to the ministers. We'll proudly release our mandate letters that we're going to provide to each minister should we win on June the 2nd. But here's the thing that I think is most important about the way that the Ford Conservatives have chosen to handle this particular situation. I think it speaks to their motivations. What is it that's in those letters that for 4 full years they have fought so hard against the release of? Now, we're not talking about, we are talking about, I suspect, their grave concerns that there are items mentioned in those letters, I'm guessing, particularly around public health care and public education, which would confirm what we all know, watching Doug Ford for the past 4 years, that he wants to privatize. That's why he prioritized rapid tests for private schools when kids at public schools were waiting. That's why his own health minister said in February, they're going to prioritize using private hospitals to clear the surgical backlog. So you don't really have to guess or to wonder. When you look at the way the Ford Conservatives have behaved over the past 4 years, you know that they're scared to release those letters. That's why they are wasting your money and my money, to pay lawyer fees to go all the way potentially to the Supreme Court. It is unconscionable and appalling that they don't have the confidence in their own plan to just level with the people of Ontario about their hidden agenda, the agenda that they are trying desperately to keep hidden, to privatize, to cut, and to deliver more chaos.
And on a very different note, the Tory government committed $20 million to fund the search for burial sites near residential schools. But some residential school survivors and Indigenous leaders have said that just isn't enough. And then they've also raised concerns about the allocation process for funds. As Premier, would you increase that funding, and would you change the allocation process that's been criticized?
So first of all, look, we all have an obligation in this province, every single one of us, to do everything that needs to be done to advance reconciliation with Indigenous people. The unspeakable horrors that occurred at residential schools here in Ontario and across Canada, I mean, it literally rocks me to my core as the father of 2 young daughters. It's something that we need to continue to shine a light on. Our fully funded and fully costed, I should say, platform contains details about how we would invest to make sure that any other unmarked graves, any other situations are fully funded in terms of dealing with this situation. But I want to say it's so important. It's so important to have a government at Queen's Park and a premier at Queen's Park who doesn't simply believe in dictating from on high about this, but actually works with Indigenous people and actually has these searches be led with, in partnership with, Indigenous people in this province. So we will fund it appropriately, but we will work closely with Indigenous people. So we're not dictating and suggesting we know how to do it better. They need to be not just partners with us on this, but helping lead on this.
Morning.
Morning.
I think I asked 5 yesterday, so only 1 today. So you have an incredibly busy schedule. I think you have 4 events like before noon today, and then you're off to Ottawa. You lost by quite a bit in 2018. So I'm just wondering, when are you getting out the time to go canvassing in Vaughan Woodbridge?
Yeah, I've already been out canvassing a couple of times in this campaign. I've done a couple of what we call telephone town halls into my riding. My wife and daughters have been out canvassing in the community that we love, the community where we have lived, where I've lived for more than 3 decades. I have a phenomenal team on the ground that's working hard. But the good news is, in Vaughan Woodbridge, my neighbors understand that when I talk about the affordability pledge and how we're going to reduce the cost of gas, the price of gas at the pumps here in Mississauga, it's going to benefit them too. When I talk about Buck a Ride province-wide, we have a subway station in Vaughan. We have the Viva BRT. We have GO trains that run through Vaughan. It's going to help make their life more affordable. When I stop at the grocery store on Highway 7, Fortino's, every Saturday morning, and I pick up something that's a prepared food, or I stop there after work on the way home, outside of campaign hours, because when I'm campaigning, the store's closed normally before I get back. But when I pick up a rotisserie chicken or a side salad, under an Ontario Liberal government, that's going to be 8% cheaper. My neighbors, the people that I live beside, the people who I loved representing, they know that the Ontario Liberal plan will put more money in their pocket, will help them and their kids in education, will help them if they need health care, will help the seniors in my community, because we're going to deliver a home care first guarantee. Everything we're talking about resonates here in Mississauga, and it resonates in Vaughan Woodbridge as well.
Thank you, everyone. We'll move to Will and the folks on the line.
Okay, just a reminder to reporters on the line, if you could raise your hand using the Zoom function, I will add you to the queue for a question. Your first question is from Alan Hale from Queen's Park today. Go ahead, Alan.
Hi, Stephen.
Morning, Alan.
I was just wondering, we haven't heard you talk about this handgun ban for pretty much since it was announced. I'm just wondering, is that something you guys are still proposing, and has it fallen off the radar because of the criticism of this idea?
No, in fact, everyone I've spoken with in Ontario, every day Ontarian that I've spoken with who sees the rising gun violence, the use of handguns and crimes here in the GTA and beyond, they love the idea. They absolutely love the idea. And so, no, it is in our platform. It is something that I am committed to. It's encouraging to know that we have a federal government in place, I think for the first time ever, that actually supports working with provinces and territories to deliver on banning things like handguns in this case that we're talking about. I think it has great potential, and it is something that I remain absolutely committed to.
So why isn't it being featured more in, I haven't seen any more ads about it, you haven't talked about it, you didn't mention it during the debate, like why is this an idea that is not, you're not shouting from the mountaintops about?
Well, I'm talking about it right now. Glad you asked about it. I think it was the first thing, I might be wrong, it was one of the first things that I announced in Scarborough, in the community of Scarborough-Guildwood, with my colleague Mitzi Hunter and the rest of our Ontario Liberal candidates. We as a caucus, we as a party have a track record on this. Mitzi has led on this issue with private members' bills. But again, this comes down to a really stark choice. The people of Ontario have the chance to choose Doug Ford if they want. But with Doug Ford, there's a whole series of difficulties that we believe Ontario will continue to encounter. We know that Doug Ford has cozied up to the gun lobby. We know that he doesn't want to act on an initiative like this but we do. So Ontario Liberals will ban handguns. We're going to do that in conjunction, a partnership with our federal government. We're going to make sure it happens because community safety and getting rid or reducing gun violence in this province is so critically important.
Okay, your next question is from Mike Crawley from CBC. Go ahead, Mike.
Hi, Stephen. Thanks for taking my question.
My pleasure.
I've noticed that there has not been a lot of support for your Ontario Liberal campaign from the federal Liberal MPs and the federal Liberal machine. Why is it that we're not seeing a bunch more of the federal Liberal members of Parliament out, stumping for you guys?
No, I don't. Respectfully, Mike, I don't know where that information is coming from. My own federal MP in my community of Vaughan Woodbridge has been out 2 or 3 times for me. I know that, for example, my former colleagues in the legislature, Han Dong, Helena Jasic, Michael Coteau have been out helping Yasser Naqvi up in Ottawa Centre. He's been out knocking on doors. I know that Omar Al-Gabra, for example, has been out helping candidates here, knocking on doors with rank and file members from those. And I'm just mentioning those as examples. My understanding is, and I'm certainly hearing from our candidates, that their federal counterparts, their Liberal counterparts are out there. There are a lot of volunteers, by the way, that our parties provincially and federally have in common. That's certainly true in my community. And so I believe at the doors, a lot of federal Liberal MPs are out there because they know how high the stakes are in this election campaign. They've watched for 4 years, in particular over the past 2, as Doug Ford chose to be not a real partner, for example, on early learning and $10 a day childcare. They know that he waited right until the last possible second. They know that he spent tens of millions of dollars of your money and my money fighting the federal government in court, for example, paying for radio and television ads, for example, forcing gas station owners to put stickers at pumps, but in essence fighting the federal government because they don't believe carbon pollution should in any way be charged or have a levy against it. So a lot of the federal MPs that I talk to, they're out there, they're helping, and they will continue right until June 2nd.
One data point that I'm seeing fairly consistently in the polling is that somewhere in the neighborhood of 20% of people who voted Liberal in the federal election say that they're going to vote PC in the provincial election. How can you explain this? And given what is usually a fairly strong Liberal Party brand, transferring both between federal and provincial parties, and what would you say to these folks who are feeling that that even though they've voted for Justin Trudeau federally, that they think Doug Ford is the best person to be premier here in Ontario?
Well, first of all, let's be really clear about this. I think advance polls open today. I think I'm right about that, Aman? Yeah. So nobody in Ontario has really voted yet. So standing here with 2 weeks to go, standing here and presuming that we know how anybody in this province is going to vote, I think we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. What I know is that the people who are hearing our positive, forward-looking message understand clearly what is at risk right now. And this includes people who voted for every party, I imagine federally, who are feeling it at the pumps. They're feeling it in the grocery stores. They know that Doug Ford will continue to drag this province back and hold people down. They know that he stood in front of the people of Ontario and said he was going to make the price of gas cheaper, that he was going to make it easier and cheaper to buy a home, for example. And they know instead what they got was the real Doug Ford over 4 years, someone who delivered cuts and chaos and havoc, someone who had no interest in actually performing in a credible and competent and responsible way, and someone who now, right before an election campaign began, started issuing press releases on a fairly frenzied basis to try to make it seem like he still has the same commitments from 4 years ago. So, look, I think people in this province realize with 2 weeks to go that we as a party are gathering momentum. We have momentum. Our candidates are working hard. Our 19-point affordability pledge, that is something that they know they can rely upon. They know because there are timelines in it, that it's fully costed. And I think people are excited about where Ontario Liberals plan to take this province should we earn their trust on June 2nd.
Okay, your next question is from Richard Southern from City News. Go ahead, Richard.
Morning, Mr. Del Duca. I'm
Morning,
wondering
Richard.
if you can shed some light on like what your testing protocol is like in light of this unfortunate news on the campaign trail. Are you testing multiple times a day, once a day? How is that being dealt with? And also, did all the candidates test before the debate?
So I can't speak to what the other candidates did before the debate. I tested myself this morning now that, of course, I've learned, as we all have, which is very unfortunate that Mr. Schreiner and Ms. Horwath have tested positive. Tested myself this morning. It came back negative. I will follow public health guidelines and continue to monitor myself for symptoms very closely. Again, we do most of our events outdoors, but when we go indoors, frankly, even as I walked to the podium this morning, you saw that I was wearing a mask. Aman is wearing a mask right now. So we'll continue to be extremely vigilant and going forward, make sure that we are following all of the public health guidelines and erring on the side of caution.
Yeah, I have a follow-up on another matter, but do you wish the debates, the TVO or whoever had tested all the candidates first?
Look, I think, first of all, I thought it was a fantastic debate, and I was so honored to be there on that stage to present the Ontario Liberal plan for moving this province forward, particularly around the affordability crisis, the opportunity to have a very direct and clear clash of ideas between myself and Mr. Ford. I think that it was an honor to be there. You know, the team at TVO I found to be extremely professional. We were all masked while indoors, except while the four of us were at the podium. I think they were handling it in a very responsible way. But most importantly, I was just honored to be there to be able to speak directly to Ontarians and help them understand what's at stake in this election campaign. 4 more years of Doug Ford's behavior that's off the charts erratic, unleashing havoc on this province with cuts and chaos and holding us back and holding us down, or that fair, forward-looking and fully costed Ontario Liberal plan that will go right at the heart of the affordability crisis that people are facing right now.
Lastly, for me, the mandate letters, the court's going to rule, I think, within the hour on this. I mean, the argument that Mr. Ford has made is that they could contain cabinet discussions. And these letters, they weren't always made public. I'm sure you're aware of that. Could they actually contain some cabinet sensitivity, sir?
I suspect that they contain a lot of things that keeps Doug Ford up at night. Because if those letters become public, Doug Ford knows what I suspect is the case, that people in this province will see him completely uncovered in terms of exactly what his real motivation is. That hidden, not right now hidden, let's hope not hidden for much longer agenda to prioritize privatization at all costs, to help the richest in society become even richer, and to do all of that at the expense of everyday Ontarians in healthcare, in education, and in so much. Highway 413 is a great example. Trying to waste $10 billion to make some rich people richer while the rest of us, many in this province, are still struggling. That's just backwards. That's reckless. So I have no doubt there's a lot that's contained in those letters that keeps Doug Ford up at night. There is no other reason to explain why at every single step along the way he's refused to do the right thing, the responsible thing, the transparent thing, and then reveal the letters and let Ontarians judge for themselves.
Okay, your next question is from Rob Ferguson from the Toronto Star.
Good morning, Stephen. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can, Rob. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Just wanted to ask back a little more about COVID. So you're still standing, you're still out and about. Does this give you an advantage over Andrea and Mike over the next few days? Or does it matter anymore because so much is virtual now, people are used to that. You know, it's not a typical campaign where we're seeing huge rallies and huge gatherings and whatnot. So can you parse that, please?
Well, look, I appreciate the question, but I just have to say, and that's, you know, that's why I wanted to say it right off the top this morning. I feel very badly for both Mr. Schreiner and Ms. Horwath. I know the timing is not ideal for either of them. We are, of course, in the midst of this election campaign. And I know that everyone who's running to be premier is working hard and doing their best. It's one of the reasons I wanted to reach out this morning, as I did, calling both of them, leaving voicemails, letting them know that I am thinking about them, that it's not a good spot to be in, of course. But I just have to say, I'm not looking at this in any way, shape, or form from the standpoint of how it helps or doesn't help any one of our campaigns. You know, we are partisan. We are all running to be premier. But there is something that goes beyond partisan politics, or at least there should be. and that's the fact that we are all Ontarians. We are all in this fight together to get through COVID truly to the other side. We have different perspectives on how to get there. In particular, myself and Mr. Ford have extraordinarily different perspectives, but I wish Ms. Horwath and Mr. Schreiner nothing but the best.
All right, just to parse it a little more, though, since it is such a different campaign, does it even matter anymore that you can be at that gas station in Mississauga, and that, you know, Andrea Horwath is in a hotel room in Ottawa right now, or wherever she is, or
right.
Mike Schreiner's at his house in Guelph? Like, does it even matter anymore?
Look, I guess Ontarians will have to judge, but you are quite right in pointing out that the world has changed over the past 2 years in so many ways. We all, every single one of us, transitioned to the online world. I'm taking your questions and your colleagues' questions, obviously virtually right this moment. So a lot has changed, but ultimately voters will make their decisions accordingly. I just want to stress again, I wish Ms. Horwath and Mr. Schreiner nothing but the best and a speedy recovery.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Okay, your next question is from John Michael McGrath from TVO. John, I think you're on mute.
My apologies.
No problem.
2 years and counting.
Yeah, for all of us.
You said all of your candidates are appropriately vaccinated, and I'm just bumping on the word choice there. Are some of your candidates not vaccinated, either for medical reasons or otherwise?
Everybody's fully vaccinated. Thank you for making me clarify that. Everyone is fully vaccinated.
And you know, we're talking obviously about you know, the unfortunate news about Mr. Schreiner and Ms. Horwath, but in terms of your plan for the next several days, are you changing any of your campaign schedule? Were there events that perhaps an indoor event that you're thinking about rescheduling because of these contacts?
So I know what I'm doing today, and I know what I'm scheduled to do tomorrow. I don't believe anything has been changed for either today or for tomorrow in terms of outdoors versus indoors. Most of the events I've done in this campaign so far have been outdoors, and I suspect that will continue to be the case. But again, let me just stress, I tested myself this morning. I will be monitoring myself very closely for any symptoms. I'll continue to test, and hopefully, obviously, Ms. Horwath and Mr. Schreiner recover fully and can get back out on the campaign trail when it's appropriate.
And finally, you have been you delivered for you a relatively energetic performance on the debate stage, and you're energetic again today. I'm wondering, what have your staff told you, or are they putting extra espresso in your coffee?
I don't think it's humanly possible for anyone to drink more espresso or any other caffeine than me already, but I'm up to the challenge if I'm required to have more. Look, I'm excited. Debate night, I was excited because it was a really glorious opportunity to talk directly to Ontarians about the plan that I am so proud of. And I'm proud of it because it's a plan that will actually help Ontarians, in particular those who are still going through a bit of a tough time, or a lot of a tough time, because of what we've had to endure for the past 2 years. And I'm really excited about the fact that I believe momentum is coalescing around the Ontario Liberal plan. I think about our 19-point affordability pledge. I mean, it's literally spelled out there, and I signed my name on the dotted line. So everybody in Ontario knows they can hold me and our team to account for everything that we're committing to. Prepared meals being cheaper, under 20 bucks, buck a ride province-wide, the price of gas at the pump coming down as of July 1st, bringing back rent control, helping our most vulnerable seniors. I'm excited about the plan, and I'm excited about earning people's trust and confidence to wake up on June 3rd and to work even harder for them. That's what's motivating me every single day right now. And of course, lots of caffeine.
Okay, and there are no further questions on the line. Thank you.
Terrific. Thanks, everyone.